Starts now.
Yes, it does on this Tuesday. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Thanks to you for being with us. Got a lot to do over the next hour. We'll be joined by Damon Hack, host of Golf Today on Golf Channel. What is going on with the PGA Tour and the Saudi PIF? Is Nuco going to go the way of the dodo? We'll have to wait and see. Contender Pretender on this Tuesday edition of the show. Some odds and ends. I got something I want to talk about when it comes to the NFL's MVP race that is so hotly discussed. Could be one of the closest that we've seen in many years in the NFL. But we do start it out in the National Football League. I was going to say the association. I was thinking of the NFL. And boy, what a doubleheader the NFL was able to put together last night. The two games played, Dolphins and the Titans, and Tennessee comes out with, I want to say, an improbable win, and I'll tell you why I'm still going to get all over the Dolphins for losing this game. We'll get to that coming up in a couple of minutes. And how about Tommy DeVito, baby? It's like The Sopranos. I love it. The cutaways to his father and his agent and his family, and he has taken a Giants season that was completely in the crapper and resurrected it and made it interesting and made it fun. And yeah, the Giants are probably going to screw this up and not get a great draft pick, but Tommy DeVito has turned himself into like a future Disney movie or something like that with what he's been able to do in the last few games where he's led the Giants to a few wins. Sam Yarnell is our man. Can't do any Disney movies on him, unfortunately. What is that? What fake?
Paisano, how you doing?
Yep. You should have came on. Why didn't you just come over the show? Why didn't you just come on the show with a piece of pizza in your hand?
That'd have been great. Chicken cutlet sandwich, some mozzarella.
Yeah. Nice.
Speaking of which, most overlooked part of yesterday for the DeVito household, for the DeVito family, is overlooked because of Tommy's great performance during the game, sure. In the parking lot, in the tailgate outside MetLife before the game, my mouth is watering just thinking about it. The DeVito family set up what looked like a station based on the videos and pictures I saw on social media, where fans could walk up and go down the line and make themselves a chicken cutlet sandwich. It was the most New Jersey DeVito thing that you could think of. It was like you go down the line, you get your bread, your fresh bread, your chicken cutlet, freshly cut, put it in, the mozzarella on top, the roasted red peppers, and then the balsamic. It was authentic, man. It was the real deal. Shout out to the DeVitos for keeping all of Northeast New Jersey fed with the good Italian stuff.
He made a hell of a throw to Wan'Dale Robinson to set up this game-winning field goal that's on our screen right now from Randy Bullock, who was able to put it through after missing one earlier in the game.
Randy.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though. That's a hell of a win for the Giants, who are now 5-8. I mean, if they won, let's just go crazy for a second here. If they won out and went 9-8, could they get in?
Like, yeah, because it's the NFC, and someone's got to get in with that.
What's the rest of the Giants' schedule look like? This is the A block. We got time in this segment. I just have to see what's the rest of the Giants.
That's Saints, winnable. At Eagles versus Rams.
At Eagles
versus Eagles. They still have the Eagles twice.
Oh, they still got the Eagles twice. Oh, what a buzzkill! You just killed my high, man. It's awful. All right, well, guess it's not happening. But still, great story. And look, I mean,
definitely,
he's playing his way into an interesting conversation in New York. Or New Jersey, as it may be, with this Giants team and what they do going forward. But still, congratulations to the Giants. And that's a terrible loss for the Packers, who had some momentum. We're starting to play a little better. You lose that kind of game. It's bad for the Pack. All right. The game that obviously more people are talking about is the Dolphins' loss. And I can sit here and say, look, they suffered a lot of injuries in this game. They lost 3 guys before the first drive was even done. And that is something that has to be discussed, and it's certainly part of the conversation when we talk about them losing this game. However, you cannot, under any circumstances, you cannot, at home, against a Will Levis-led offense that's done nothing over the last few weeks, you cannot blow a 27-13 lead in the fourth quarter at home if you're the Dolphins. You just can't. And I know their defense isn't great. And I know the other team's got DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry. You cannot blow that kind of lead and have me taking you seriously, no matter what your record is. It's a terrible loss.
An unprecedented loss, Jason. It's the first time an NFL team in, I think, 268 attempts or 268 happenstances. First time an NFL team has lost when being up 14 or more points with less than 3 minutes to go. Wild. Lost in regulation. There may be a caveat in there. I'm not sure. I saw the stat very quickly. I apologize if I'm off in some regard. Anyway, you said with the injuries, which is, big Bills guy, see a lot of Dolphins stuff on my Twitter naturally. And it's the excuse that a lot of Dolphins fans seem to make. My thing is, Tyreek Hill was on the field for the last 3 minutes of that game. It's not like these injuries were affecting you when you were blowing the game colossally in unprecedented fashion.
Get a couple of first downs and the game's over.
That's what I was about to say. When Tua needs to get 2 first downs, but we all know about Tua and performing in clutch moments. Doesn't go too well.
Yeah, it's a bad loss. There's no getting around it. And it just continues to feed into this narrative that the AFC is wide open. Just get in. Just get in and get on a run and take it game by game. Somebody's going to come out of the AFC. They're probably going to get their doors blown off by the Niners if San Francisco remains healthy. But somebody's going to come out of the AFC. All you got to do is get into the, as Bill Parcells likes to call it, the second season, and you're going to have a chance because I do not see a prohibitive favorite. I do not see a prohibitive favorite coming out of the AFC right now.
I still think it's the Ravens. Like, the Ravens are a gritty team.
It's still Lamar Jackson, who has one postseason win in his career. He's got to show me something. Matt Verderam and I talked about this yesterday. As much as I want to believe, and I think he's the MVP, or certainly should be in the MVP conversation, is having one of his best seasons. He's got to win in the playoffs. And there's been too many times where I've seen him struggle in big spots in the playoffs to make the big throw.
I think that the difference...
Got to bet somebody, though, right?
This is just how I've sold myself as a hand up Baltimore Ravens AFC Championship ticket holder. I think I'd placed that bet live on the show in like week 4 or something. This is just how I see it with Lamar this year. And again, could be looking through rose-colored lenses here. I think that the difference this season is that Lamar has seemingly made a conscious effort not to get hurt, which has been his downfall his entire career, is that he deals with injuries like nobody's business. He deals with more injuries than any major quarterback that we see in the NFL of his pedigree. It seems like this season has been different, and he's protected himself a little bit more, and I just want to trust him more now that hasn't dealt with a knee injury or dealt with a rib injury, something that we know can affect quarterbacks that he's dealt with in past years when he's gone to the playoffs.
The Ravens are plus 240 right now to come out of the AFC. The Dolphins, with the loss last night, they and the Chiefs were both plus 290 going into yesterday. Now it's Kansas City plus 290, Miami plus 350. The Jaguars have jumped up a little bit. They're plus 1,000. Buffalo is plus 1,000. My God, I would put money up right now on Buffalo at plus 1,000. Not because I think they're going to, just because the value is too great, and we've seen what that team can do at its best. You got to look at, when you start to analyze this stuff, you have to judge teams on their ceiling. And Buffalo's ceiling, to me, is a Super Bowl team. The ceiling for Kansas City is still a Super Bowl team. I don't know that. I think a lot of things have to break right for Jacksonville to be a Super Bowl team. I think the matchups have to break right for Miami to be a Super Bowl team. Baltimore, they're going to go where Lamar Jackson takes them. And say this too. As this season has progressed, Odell Beckham Jr. has become a bigger and bigger part of that offense. If they can keep him healthy, that is a huge X factor for them that they have not had in seasons past. And we all know what Zay Flowers has done. Talk about throwing a guy his flowers. He deserves them right now. Zay Flowers has been enormous for that Baltimore offense. What a draft pick. What a draft pick. I mean, that they got, that they were able to get that kind of player in that spot. Oh, my goodness. He has been a godsend for that organization. And think about it. We're talking about an offense where Lamar Jackson has basically been, Mark Andrews and little else really in the receiving game. Now he's got Mark Andrews. Now he's got Zay Flowers. Now he has Odell Beckham Jr. And all of a sudden, they got a lot of different ways they can hurt you offensively. So pretty impressive.
You're selling yourself on them. It sounds like you're like walking down the road to the Ravens store.
Here's the thing. Now it really is all on Lamar Jackson. When you get surrounded with weapons, it's like the situation in San Francisco with the Niners. If they don't make it to the Super Bowl at the very least, it's going to be because Brock Purdy came up short. If that roster's healthy, the only reason they don't wind up in a Super Bowl is because Brock Purdy came up short. It's the same thing in Baltimore now. There's enough offensive weapons there. If that team doesn't reach the Super Bowl, and we know how good they are defensively, if that team doesn't reach the Super Bowl, it's going to be laid at the feet of Lamar Jackson.
I think it's a little different. The San Francisco defense is, in my opinion, a mile better. Not miles, but a mile better than the Baltimore defense right now. The San Francisco run game is completely different than the Baltimore run game, right? Brock Purdy has so many more distractions around him.
I don't disagree that he has more weapons. I'm just saying there is so many more weapons now for Lamar Jackson than he's ever really had, that if this team doesn't reach its full potential, it's going to be laid at his feet, rightly or wrongly.
But again, not having Mark Andrews the rest of the season, you take that weapon away from Lamar. I understand wanting to put it all on him. It makes sense. It's what we do with quarterbacks in the league. It's the nature of the game of football. I just think that it will be so much more of a letdown if Brock Purdy can't lead the Niners to the Super Bowl with everything that they've put around him.
I agree.
Than if Lamar Jackson can't lead the Ravens to a Super Bowl. Because as much as they've built the team around him more so than they had in past years, they still haven't. Be realistic. They've got Odell Beckham Jr. in the last 2 years of his career. They used to have Mark Andrews, not going to have him the rest of the season. Hey, Isaiah Likely, what's up, second year tight end?
He's been pretty good, though. Likely's been pretty good.
He has in his 2 years. And when Mark Andrews was injured last year, same thing. He showed flashes, but he's not Mark Andrews. No. There are like 3 guys in the league who are Mark Andrews. Sure. Zay Flowers, probably what we could say the second best rookie wide receiver in the league. Electric, but that's one electric weapon that he has right now. Odell has looked good at times. I don't think that he's still good at this point in his career.
I think Odell Beckham Jr.'s been, when healthy, he's still good. He still can get separation. He's still gonna make a big play here and there. But he is on the back nine of his career. I don't disagree with that. It's just
not consistent like it used to be.
No, of course not. Of course not. All right, stick around. We'll do more NFL coming up in a few minutes. Sam will come back and join us for Contender Pretender. We got to do some golf. Damon Hack hosts Golf Today on Golf Channel. John Rahm bolting for Live Golf. Tony Finau's not, though. What does it all mean for a deal between the PGA Tour and Live Golf? We'll get into all of it as we continue on this Tuesday edition of the Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. SportsWrap continues on this Tuesday. We'll get back into some NFL conversation, odds and ends still to come as well, but I wanted to get into some of the golf stuff, especially with what transpired last week. I made a visit over to the American Express Media Day, and of course the news concerning Jon Rahm, which we've obviously talked about at great length too. Damon Hack does a terrific job over at Golf Channel, the host of Golf Today. As a matter of fact, when the Jon Rahm news broke last week, Damon, the first thing I did, and got to be in people's minds, first thing you do, go over to Golf Channel and go check out the news on it, and you guys did a great job covering it. So here we go again. Another big PGA Tour star, one of its top members, defects to Live Golf. How does this ultimately impact the negotiations between Live Golf and the PGA Tour? Because I'll tell you, I saw John Norris last week, who's one of the executives over at the PGA Tour, and at that media day event for the American Express out here in the Palm Springs area, he said he thought we'd see news this week or next week, being last week or this week. Obviously, the Rahm story changed the calculus on all sides, didn't it?
Really did, and that story was reported the morning of the Wall Street Journal, saying this is imminent, likely to happen. I basically hung around the office all day waiting for it to become official, which it did. This is, I think, one of two things, or maybe one of several things. It's definitely a leverage play, I think, at a bare minimum. The PIF Live reminding the PGA Tour who has the deepest pockets, and that is Live. It's just can't compete. The Tour cannot compete from a dollar-to-dollar standpoint. Maybe this propels, entices, motivates the PGA Tour a little bit closer to the wishes of what PIF wants, whatever that might be, whether it's some sort of structural control, a bigger seat at the table for whatever this new co ultimately looks like, this relationship between the PGA Tour, the PIF, and the DP World Tour, this soon-to-be potentially for-profit company. At the same time, the Tour is advancing negotiations with SSG, the Fenway Sports Group, which includes John Henry, the owner of the Liverpool and the Boston Red Sox. Arthur Blank's a part of SSG, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, Home Depot, PGA Tour Superstore, has a house on Hilton Head, a longtime visitor of the RBC Heritage, has longtime ties to the PGA Tour. So you've got these kind of multi-pronged situations happening, this ongoing framework agreement negotiation, but also the Tour looking for private equity in the United States. And I think the Rahm play was the PIF, in my opinion, clearing its throat, reminding everybody who's the biggest dog in the house.
Well, you mentioned the strategic group, and I want to talk about that, because that is one of these private investment companies that's come in and said, hey, if you're going to go the private route, no, don't go with the Saudis, go with us instead. Can they compete with what the Saudis are doing? Because it seems to me the money from the Saudi PIF is endless. I mean, they basically just take it out of the ground in the form of oil. So I mean, there's always this idea of, is there a competitor in this process? Otherwise, why wouldn't a deal already be done with the Saudi PIF if there wasn't somebody else in the game potentially?
Yeah, my question is, will the SSG, you're talking about investors who are used to receiving a return. They're not going to invest in something out of the goodness of their heart, out of largesse. I think John Henry, Arthur Blank, these are probably a couple of the most savvy businessmen.
Steve Cohen's in that. Steve Cohen's in that too.
Exactly. Highly successful, titans of industry. They would have to see some long-term potential in whatever this new company becomes, or if it's going to be a completely straight deal between the PGA Tour and this new company, this new investment firm. And maybe at the end of the day, the PGA Tour and PIF go their separate ways, which is a possibility as well. And the end of litigation has happened. They can't sue each other anymore. That was a part of this framework agreement. But there is a potential, there is a lane where the PGA Tour does not get to that December 31st deadline with PIF. They could extend it. That's a possibility as well. But I think there's maybe some sort of hope and belief that if they can somehow make a relationship, forge a relationship with private equity, they rather go that route, I think, than, bend at the knee, as it were, to the public investment fund.
Is part of the calculus from a Jon Rahm here that the deal was going to get done. So he's not going to lose the exposure of the PGA Tour DP. Obviously he's still going to be able to play in the majors. Was part of the calculus here an assumption on his part, rightly or wrongly, that a deal was going to get done with the Saudi PIF? And now the PGA Tour could pull the rug out and say, hey, we're going with another investor. And all of a sudden, Jon Rahm's on a tour that 35 people are watching on the CW on the weekend, and nobody cares about their events.
Yeah, I think that's definitely was a possibility that Jon Rahm was saying, hey, this deal's going to get done. I'm making sure I get my $500 million plus, up front now. I'm getting it now. If these two entities are going to eventually meet anyway, I want to make sure that I get my money right. Interestingly enough, he claims that it was his family. It was the voices of his family members saying, you should take this money. Because Jon Rahm had always talked about not just the major championship history, but he talked about the tour and Torrey Pines and Memorial Jackson tournament and Arnold Palmer Invitational. He was saying all the right things about being a PGA Tour loyalist. So there is potential that he says, hey, you know what? I'm going to end up back on the PGA Tour anyway in 2025, perhaps. I'll be able to play where I want to play. But one thing I do know, he was loyal, he waited, he didn't get the money, and maybe he was tired of seeing the other guys get that money, wanted to make sure he protected himself, knowing that there will probably be an end around at the end of the day. He'll be able to play where he wants. Plus, you have Rory McIlroy saying, we'll see Jon Rahm at Bethpage Black in 2025. The DP World Tour should and must change its qualifying system, so Jon Rahm is going to be at Bethpage competing in the Ryder Cup for Team Europe anyway.
I gotta say, though, the whole thing with Rahm leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm sure it leaves a bad taste in other people's mouths as well because of what he said. And you guys did a great job chronicling what he said versus what he wound up doing, in the long run. And I'll be very curious to see if it does turn into a situation where if a deal doesn't get done with the Saudi PIF, and that lane does exist, as you say, what winds up happening. The silence of Tiger throughout this since Rahm has left. And this is another thing that makes me wonder about this other lane with this strategic group that's out there with the John Henrys and Steve Cohens and the owner of the Brewers, who's not doing a great job owning the Brewers. There's this silence from Tiger, and it makes me wonder with his influence on the tour, is he part of these conversations? Some of these people have money in Tiger's indoor venture, with Rory. It makes me wonder if how involved in this a Tiger. I don't know about Rory at this point because he kind of washed his hands from some of it. How involved this is behind the scenes. I can't help but wonder if this thing is really percolating behind the scenes.
Yeah, to hear people tell it, Tiger and Patrick Cantlay are the two loudest voices among these 6 player directors. They're the two guys, and listen, you're saying they have business savvy. I'm not saying these guys are they're not, Warren Buffett we're talking about, but Tiger has been in some big time deals. Whether it's golf course architecture or his relationship with Nike, Patrick Cantlay has a very curious mind about business and Goldman Sachs and different things. So I do think that the tour, from a player standpoint, they have many relationships with the investors that they're talking to. You mentioned TGL. I mean, one of the TGL teams is Boston Common, which is a part of the John Henry group as well. So there are a lot of relationships, I think, but I don't think you're going to hear Tiger. Tiger is very, very cautious and careful in terms of what he's going to say. But I think inside those rooms, I think his voice is very, very powerful. Make no mistake, he purposely went to that Delaware meeting to talk about his vision for the PGA Tour, 72 holes, you dig it out of the dirt, and he wants to capitalize on the relationships he has. I mean, his TGL, this indoor league, has the investment groups like Serena Williams backing it, Steph Curry backing it. Tiger has great cachet and a lot of relationships throughout the sports world and the business world as well.
One more, and then I want to get to one question outside of Liv. Where's Jay Monahan? Remember the book, Where's Waldo? Where's Jay Monahan? Has he been locked in a closet somewhere? Not to speak. What is going on with Jay?
Jay has had to take a bit of a back seat because he's lost a lot of the trust from the players. and the player, and listen, and Tiger and those guys will say that Jay is doing what he can to build the trust back. But I think part of building the trust back is him being more of a backseat player in this, not being as out front. This is, Tiger said, listen, what happened on June 6th can never happen again. And Jay knows that. That's a direct quote from Tiger Woods. So I think you're not going to see Jay be very, very vocal out front. He'll send a memo here and there to the players about this is what this is, and we're advancing negotiations with this group, for example, the Fenway Group, SSG. But I think Jay Monahan knows that any false step, any bad move, real or imagined, PR or legitimate, could be the end of his tenure. I mean, even the rumors about Tony Finau, had Tony Finau decided to sign with Liv, and we saw his note on Instagram, hashtag I'm not leaving, with quoting DiCaprio, from The Wolf of Wall Street. I think that any type of PR hit, one more, it's like a Jenga puzzle right now that Jay Monahan is standing on.
Last one before I let you go regarding Tiger. We saw him at the Hero, his own event, and he got through it healthy. Played 4 rounds. He came through it healthy. He could still hit it as long as anybody. Issues with the short game, that's rust to me. I could see him shaking that off. What are your realistic expectations for Tiger in 2024? And this thought that he says he wants to play 1 tournament a month in 2024.
Yeah. Amazing. He said that's an optimistic view. He says if things go well from a health standpoint, he wants to play once a month, say the Genesis, his tournament in February, the Players in March, the Masters in April, all the big events all the way up through the Open Championship in July. Listen, to hear him tell it, his body came through pretty well. Most importantly, the ankle, the subtalar fusion that he had no longer has the pain. Now it's radiated to other parts of his body, the 4 back surgeries, the knee surgeries, etc. But for him to walk 72 holes, he said it was more of a lack of mental commitment to every shot, and that will come with time. Listen, 2019 to me changed the calculus on whether Tiger could win again. He won a 15th major championship. It showed that being on the same tee box with a Koepka or a Finau or a Francesco Molinari or a Poulter, that red shirt still can make the knees weak for a lot of his opponents. So I think on any given Sunday, to borrow a football term, I think Tiger Woods can win for an 83rd time on the PGA Tour.
I agree with you. I would never bet against him, Damon. I've just seen too much. I've seen too much to bet against the guy. Damon Hack does a terrific job. Golf Today over on Golf Channel. They're on a break until January. Enjoy the time off, my friend. Be well. It's good to catch up with you.
Have a great holiday, buddy. Thanks, Jason.
Absolutely. Damon Hack hanging out with us on the show. All right, stick around. We got more to do on the program. Sam Yarnell will rejoin us. We will get into a bit more from the National Football League, some odds and ends to wrap it up as well on this Tuesday edition of the Sports Wrap. Sports Wrap continues on this Tuesday. Thank you again to Damon Hack, hanging out with us from Golf Channel, host of Golf Today. Off until, I think he said January 3rd or January 5th. He's got some time off. He said he told me off the air, he goes, unless Tiger decides to go to Live Golf, then they might call us in. It's that time of the show, time for Contender Pretender. Week 14/15 edition of Contender Pretender. Sam Yarnell rejoins us after sitting through our interview with Damon Hack from Golf Channel. And Sam, 3 contenders, 3 pretenders as we get ready for Week 15 in the National Football League. Go.
All right, Jason. Great to hear from Damon, by the way.
It's awesome.
My contenders for Week 14. Really? It's become so obvious at this point. It's easy. The 49ers are my first contender. They're Super Bowl contenders. They're everything contenders. Whatever you want, whatever label you want to put on them, the 49ers could win it if they stay healthy. The 49ers are contender number 1, contender A1. grade A contender, the San Francisco 49ers. Who's beating that team? My second contender, excuse me, the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
Yeah, those guys from Jerry's world. Yeah, I think they're going to contend to win the NFC East. I really do. I think that this Philadelphia Eagles team is going to flounder a little bit here at the very end of the regular season. I think that they'll be fine come playoffs. That said, Cowboys have looked really, really, really good over the course of the last couple of weeks, and they looked really good in that Philadelphia game. Give me the Cowboys as a contender to win the NFC East. And my final contender, Jason, Homer Sam's coming out. It's the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are contenders to have some fun in this postseason. Listen, it's not about what you do at the dance. It's about getting to the dance that counts. And the Bills could be well on their way. We've got breaking news that Justin Herbert out the rest of the season. The Bills play the Chargers in 2 weeks. That means they'll be playing the Easton Stick Chargers in 2 weeks. I think the Bills may turn this one around. They could win the AFC East, especially with how the Dolphins have been performing so far this last couple of weeks. All right, my pretenders. The Kansas City Chiefs are my first pretender. They're definitely Super Bowl contenders, and this is the second week in a row that I've said this during this segment. The Kansas City Chiefs are not good enough to win the Super Bowl again this year. It's showing in their emotions, it's showing in their talent, and it's showing in their execution on the field. The Kansas City Chiefs are lacking something, and that's fine. There were seasons where the New England Patriots were lacking something during their incredible dynastic run. These things happen to teams this great. This is a down year for the Kansas City Chiefs, and for that reason, they are Super Bowl pretenders. The Miami Dolphins are my next pretender. I don't think they're playoff pretenders. I think they're anything beyond a first or second round exit, not first round exit pretenders. The Miami Dolphins just go and show us week in, week out that they cannot win the big game. They cannot make the plays when it matters, and that's all that matters when you talk about playoff football. So yeah, the Miami Dolphins could make it to the playoffs. I mean, their record right now would probably get them there, even if they lost out. That said, they're not doing anything once they get to the dance. They're that kid who's going to get to the dance and stand in the corner and then an hour in call their mom and get them to come pick them up. That's who the Miami Dolphins are.
That was me.
That was not me, Jason. I apologize.
Wow. Look at you, Joe Cool.
Back in the day, I definitely peaked around those years. Yeah. My final pretender, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've been telling you, the loyal listeners and loyal watchers, the LLs and LWs of this show, for months, that this was bound to happen to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are crumbling at the end of the season. That team looks like they are in disarray, and also if they ever face a defense that plays man coverage at a high clip at this point in the season without Christian Kirk, they're done. Christian Kirk was the reason they could beat man coverage, and quite frankly, I think he might have been the reason they were so successful for so long. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are pretenders to do anything this postseason. They may be pretenders to make the playoffs at this point. That's not true. The Houston Texans are not going to overtake them with the state of that roster. Nope. The Jacksonville Jaguars are pretenders to do anything in the playoffs. So my three contenders this week, you got the 49ers, you got the Cowboys, you got the Bills. Those are my three contenders. My pretenders, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, and the Jaguars.
Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen. For those that are hearing impaired, he's giving you everything. He's giving you everything this week on the show. A couple of notes on what you said. Baltimore, by the way, is plus 600 to win the Super Bowl outright. The Chiefs are plus 650 to win the Super Bowl outright. AFC Championship, we mentioned it earlier, Kansas City plus 290, the Dolphins plus 350, Buffalo plus 1,000 is very interesting. Division, Buffalo, you can still get it plus 310 to win the AFC East.
I got him at plus 440 live on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. You could still get him right now at plus 310, which is kind of an interesting number. But for the Super Bowl, the Chiefs, you can still get it plus 650. It's kind of interesting. If you're disagreeing with Sam, You could still get them at plus 650. I just wanted to put that out there for people so that they know. We're all about giving you the information. All right, my contenders and pretenders for week 14/15, Sam Yarnell. For contenders, we start with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, if we're talking about the AFC, and it is an AFC that is wide open, and you heard me earlier in the show, I'm talking myself into the Baltimore Ravens, even though I'm the first one to yell and scream about the fact that Lamar Jackson has always come up short when it matters most in the postseason. Different set of weapons around him this time around. I'm putting the Ravens in my category as a contender. Something special happening with this team. Did you see the way that game ended on Sunday? This one might surprise you. Maybe it won't if you've been listening to the show or watching the show. The Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are a contender. If we're talking about teams that are capable of coming out of the AFC, Cleveland has to be a factor. Matt Verderame, though, did mention something that would concern me about Cleveland. Their defense on the road versus home, night and day. The splits are staggering. Go and look at them. Cleveland gives up a lot more points on the road than they do at home, and they're going to have to play on the road come the postseason. That being said, I am going to continue to say it, and again, to bring up my conversation with Matt Verderame from yesterday, he doesn't think Joe Flacco is capable at this stage in his career, what's left of it, of leading a team, on a deep playoff run. I disagree. I've said this all along. The guy is smart. He's won a Super Bowl. He knows what it takes. And as I've said before, more importantly, what it doesn't take. And I think he still has enough plays in him that Cleveland can make a deep run. I certainly think they're a playoff team, and I think they can make a deep run in an AFC that is wide open. Tampa Bay. Again, somebody's got to win that NFC South. It might as well be the Buccaneers. And if you look at what's in that division right now and the three teams that are in the mix, if you want to still say New Orleans is in the mix, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, who's the best quarterback of the three this year? Give me that guy. Give me that team. Give me Tampa Bay as a contender, certainly to win in the NFC South. All right, pretenders. This hurts me to do, but I got to do it. The Miami Dolphins are a pretender right now. For anything other than a division title, for anything other than a playoff spot, they are a pretender right now. You cannot blow a 27-13 lead at home against Will Levis and this Tennessee Titans team. You simply can't do it. And that's exactly what happened last night in Monday Night Football on a big stage. Get a couple of first downs late in the game, Tua. Couple of first downs. Can't do it. Watch the Titans march up and down the field late in that fourth quarter. Sorry, Dolphins fan. Sorry to my man Benzo who watches the show. At Palm Springs Lanes, he owns the pro shop there. Drills my balls for me. No jokes out of you, Yarnell. Not a single joke out of you. Not a word out of you. He drills my bowling balls, you fool. Benzo, your Dolphins are in trouble, my man. By the way, I went to San Diego a couple of weeks ago. True story. I bought the guy who drills my bowling balls, I bought him a Dolphins poncho while I was in San Diego a couple of weeks ago. Benzo, I hope you enjoy it. Merry Christmas.
Whoa, wait. How do you buy a poncho in San Diego? It never rains there.
No, but it gets chilly. It can get cold in San Diego. So you need a poncho.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, no, it happens. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Pretenders. Frauds. We've been telling you all the way. Don't be surprised now that this Steelers team has shown themselves to be frauds. We've known it all season long. Look at the point differential. Look at the inability to score points. The loss this week. We're done on the Steelers. Last but not least, the Green Bay Packers. Last week, after they had their most recent win, I heard Charlie Weiss on Sirius NFL Radio, my own stomping grounds, by the way. I was there before all of them were. Charlie Weiss was doing a show with Bob Papa, who's the play-by-play voice of the Giants, does some of the Champions Tour stuff on Golf Channel. Love Bob Papa, great guy. Charlie Weiss said after last week's win for the Packers, I could see a scenario where they win out. They win the rest of their games. Green Bay's playing great football. How'd that work out, Charlie? Wow. About as well as you at Notre Dame. Woo! Tough days for Charlie Weiss. Tough days for the Green Bay Packers. Pretender number 3 for Jason Page. So my contenders are the... Hold on, can I do it like you? Huh? The Ravens. I don't got any brown on me. The Browns. The Buccaneers. Aye, matey. The Pretenders will go the Miami Dolphins. The Steelers. Well, this is kind of steelish colors. And the Green Bay Packers. I got no green on me. My Pretenders for this week in Contender Pretender. How you like them apples, Sam?
Well, that was one of the funniest segments that we've ever done.
We got everything in, I think, there. I think we got just about everything in. All right, odds and ends to wrap up the show. I got a thought on the NFL MVP race. It reminds me of something. Why Tyreek Hill might still win the MVP. That's next. All right, before we say goodbye on this Tuesday edition of the show, some odds and ends. Sam Yarnell returns, hangs out with us for the segment. And I kept you around because I know it's something you're kind of interested in and passionate about, the season awards. And we've spent a lot of time this show and throughout this NFL season talking about MVP, Sam. Right now, your favorites are Dak Prescott at plus 155, Brock Purdy at plus 165, Lamar Jackson at plus 550, Jalen Hurts at plus 1,000, Josh Allen at plus 1,400, and then Patrick Mahomes at plus 1,600. Who's missing from the first 6 names on that list? Oh, I don't know. Some guy that's having a potentially historic season, and his name is Tyreek Hill. Right now, you can get Tyreek Hill at plus 2,000. And here's why I'm going to make the argument for why you should. Good. It's easier to say it in my head than it is on the air. I'm not going to take that out of the show. Here's why you should put money on Tyreek Hill at plus 2,000. It's called Aaron Judge. The only reason Aaron Judge won the 2022 Most Valuable Player in Major League Baseball and not Shohei Ohtani was because Aaron Judge did something historic. He broke the home run record as it stood in a lot of people's minds post-PED era of Major League Baseball, and surpassed, the number set by Babe Ruth and Roger Maris and all that stuff. It was a fun season to watch. Gave us the feels, right? Gave us something interesting to watch in Major League Baseball that year. But that's the only reason that Shohei Ohtani didn't win MVP back-to-back years. Why he didn't win it in 2022 and then win it in 2023 was because of what Aaron Judge did. So there is a precedent in professional sports, an argument to be made for somebody doing something completely out of the ordinary that elevates them above 2 great performances and 2 guys that have had great seasons thus far, that being Dak Prescott and that being Brock Purdy. Both of those guys are having great seasons. They're not doing anything historic. We're not talking about guys throwing for 50 touchdowns. We're not talking about guys throwing for historic passing yardage numbers. Even in an NFL where offensive numbers are inflated. What Tyreek Hill has the opportunity to do in surpassing that 2,000-yard barrier and going even far and beyond that number is something we've never seen before, even in this era of gaudy numbers for NFL players. For Tyreek Hill to win the MVP, he has to surpass that 2,000-yard number. But going as far as he can beyond that number, which might mean having to play in games that maybe you don't want him to play in. I'm not sure. It depends where the Dolphins are as we get into the late stages of the season. If Tyreek Hill can put up a number that is so unimaginable in all of our minds, even right now, with what we've seen him do this season. Tyreek Hill could be the MVP. And at plus 2,000, think about all the wonderful things you could buy for your significant other with that money you'll make on that plus 2,000 bet.
I think what's interesting that we don't remember about the Aaron Judge 2022 season is he struck out 175 times.
Nobody cares.
He struck out the second most times in his career, and exactly what Jason said. Nobody cares.
He's still at a huge average, too.
What seems to have gotten away from us across sport, this transcends sport, is the meaning of value. What value truly means to an award, to a team, or to a league. Aaron Judge in 2022 was far and away the most valuable player to the league. He wasn't the most valuable player to his team. That was Shohei Ohtani. No player is going to touch that value in baseball. Same goes for the NFL. It seems like we're so intent upon giving the MVP award to the quarterback of the best performing team, the quarterback in the most successful offense. See Brock Purdy as the favorite or the second favorite, whatever it is. My God, it's an abomination to football, whatever his odds are. And the fact that Tyreek Hill is almost 20 times that is ridiculous, just like Jason said. We need to start recognizing value for what it is, not suplexing it onto players who are undeserving, which is exactly what we're doing with Brock Purdy. My gosh, how many times do I have to come on the show and say it? Dak Prescott is less of a deserving quarterback of the award than Josh Allen is, and Josh Allen's 14-1. Not to sound like a homer, but I will. Josh Allen deserves it more than Dak Prescott does. Josh Allen deserves it more than Brock Purdy does. He doesn't deserve it more than Tyreek Hill does. That's the fact of the matter. Tyreek Hill is the most valuable player in the National Football League right now. Tyreek Hill made that offense what it is, and Tyreek Hill made his quarterback what he is.
Saw what happened to that offense last night when Tyreek Hill wasn't on the field. Even late in the game, though, with Tyreek on the field, they couldn't figure out a way to get a couple of first downs. He's the most valuable player in the league. And by the way, what do you think they're thinking in Kansas City right now? Watching Tyreek put up these kinds of numbers.
They're blaming it on the refs.
They didn't get anything for him. He walked to Miami. Terrible. At least the Angels will get something for Ohtani. Some compensatory draft picks or something like that. It's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you to Damon Hack. Golf Channel does a terrific job. Sam Yarnell, thank you to you, my friend. We'll see you back here on Thursday. We are off on Wednesday. For Sam Yarnell, I'm Jason Page. That's the Sports Wrap. We'll see you later.